Hello, and welcome back to your South King County Real Estate Update. My name is Sarah Eggleston with Stone Egg Realty at Berkshire Hathaway, and I am back to deliver your local real estate news for the month. Go ahead and jump right into these slides because there are quite a few today. So it is August 2025. Summer and buyer seller guides are available. There's also a first time home buyer guide. So if you would like one of these, please reach out and let me know. I can get one to you, physical copy, PDF, however is easiest. And into the news. So Seattle area home buyers win leverage, but face the elephant in the room. Last month, there were notably more single family homes and condos on the market across all of our counties in the region, but prices were either the same or ticked up in the month. So King County, the median sale price for a single family home was $1 million, virtually unchanged from 1 year ago. It varies a little bit for other counties, but in addition to the high prices, buyers are likely holding back in hopes that mortgage rates might fall later in the year. This is a pretty common story that I have heard. People are waiting for rates to drop, but the cautionary tale there is what happens when a bunch of buyers flood the market at the same time. Prices go up. So it may be better to get in a little bit sooner and pay a higher interest rate and refinance out of it later, because if interest rates do go down, then prices are going to go up and you cannot refinance out of a higher price like you can with a mortgage rate. The Seattle area does represent a bit of an outlier compared to the rest of the country. I just want to pull in extra attention to this because I'm going to touch on this in the next couple slides. So nationwide, new listings remained relatively unchanged from last year, according to a Redfin analysis of July housing market. But Seattle bucked the overall trend, posting one of the biggest year-over-year increases in new listings among major metro areas. So, taking a zoom out and looking at the nation, Washington is actually up almost 31% compared to July 2019, which was our last kind of normal year pre-pandemic. Overall, nationally, we're still below inventory levels from 2019, 13.4% below July of 2019. But in Washington, that is not the case. So it really depends on where you're talking about. Be careful when you're listening to national numbers and understand that they are national numbers and not necessarily related to our market directly. Housing inventory is growing the fastest. The blue is year over year. So in the West region, year over year, we're growing the fastest in inventory. In the Western region of the United States, we are 9.3% higher on inventory than we were pre-pandemic. In the Midwest and Northeast, they still have significantly less inventory than pre-pandemic, but year over year, we're up all across the nation. And buyer and seller dynamics have shifted. So blue is the estimated number of buyers, green is the estimated number of sellers. The blue's judged by the applications for loans. Here in the West, we do have quite a big gap between how many sellers we have in the area and how many people are shopping. Not quite as big of a gap as in the South, but in the Northeast and the Midwest, there are actually still more buyers out there than sellers. And home prices, this is for a year over year change in home prices in the 50 largest metros. Seattle is right here, almost dead center. The prices haven't decreased or increased much. They've decreased a little bit here in the Seattle metro area, but you can see shockingly different stories other places in the nation. So right now in our nation, it is a tale of two markets where on one side, buyers have a lot more power, and on the other side, sellers have a lot more power. And we are kind of right in the middle there. And for home price activity locally, you can see we have jumped up and then stayed right around this 1 million price point for the past few months. Homes are also lingering on the market a few weeks longer than they were at this time last year. So homes have a longer days on market time this year than they did last year. This isn't all homes. Some homes are still selling fast. those that are accurately priced are still very competitive. I have heard of multiple offer situations happening recently, but that's kind of on a case by case basis. And overall, the average home is sitting on the market a little bit longer. That means it's a good time for buyers. If there's fewer buyers out there and more homes available, then buyers have more to choose from, and there's not as much competition for each home. And they're not as rushed as they would have been. A few years ago, you'd see a house and they go, I think I want this one. It's like, okay, let's write it up. Let's get in there. Let's put our cards on the table and go forward with this home, because if you like it, we should at least try for it, because there was, insane amount of offers going in on the same home. Now buyers have more room to negotiate. The high inventory we're seeing today is a result of months of accumulation. Think of the local housing market as a reservoir. For a while now, more water has been coming into the reservoir than trickling out. The picture is even more stark for condos. A studio or single bedroom condo is the toughest thing to sell right now, according to this agent that was interviewed. Condos in general, but 2 and 3 bedroom condos could still be tough. Gone are the days when we are just putting a house on the market and the offers just start to roll in. Home buyers can take a little bit more time now to evaluate their options, make sure that that is going to be the right decision for them, and get a little bit more aggressive with their price and terms. Like, you can get inspections now. For a while during the hot heat market of the pandemic, it was like if you had an inspection in your offer, then they were going to choose an offer from somebody who had waived that inspection. So buyer leverage can only go so far, especially in Seattle, where sellers almost always have the upper hand. There are definite advantages. It's perhaps more civilized, but that does not mean prices are going down. They're just not raising at the rate that they once were. Looking at the number of home and condo sales for homes, Seattle did outpace where we were last year. The dark blue is 2025, the light blue is 2024. East Side has really pulled back from last year on the number of home and condo sales. So it really just depends on where you're looking. Here in South King County, we are outpacing the number of homes we were selling last year, but barely. Condo sales, more sales this year in Seattle, and then in the Southwest King, there are fewer this year. Southeast King, a little bit more. And for prices, you can see these are not super far off of where they were last year. All of these bars are pretty close, whether it's a little bit less last year or a little bit less this year. It's not a drastic difference. So the home prices are remaining pretty stable year over year. Affordability remains the elephant in the room for Seattle housing market. With the higher interest rates and our region's generally high prices for our homes, it's making homeownership a little bit unattainable for many people out there. But for those who can buy right now, they're finding more options to choose from and getting better terms, maybe a little bit of a price reduction from what the home is listed at. The higher level of inventory will start to bring down prices, at least modestly. So that should yield some bargains for buyers who are still out there and still trying to make a purchase. But like I said, if the interest rates come down and buyers flood the market, prices are going to go the other direction. So if buyers continue to stay away, sellers may delist their homes and opt to rent them out instead. It could be a reduction of inventory if things stay slow for too long. Buyers are watching the Federal Reserve closely, expecting the central bank to cut its target interest rate in the fall in response to recent reports of weakness in the labor market. A highly anticipated move, if it were to come to pass, is generally correlated with lower mortgage rates, and that is going to be a very attractive prospect for buyers who are used to rates right around that 7% mark. And that brings us to our hyperlocal breakdown. For Kent, Renton, Auburn, and Federal Way, this is new listings coming to the market. We did have more listings come on the market in all 4 cities compared to a year ago. 26% more in Auburn. So that's quite a big change. Homes for sale. These are new listings plus those that have sat on the market for a while. Renton up 55% since last year. Kent up 50% since a year ago. So the homes that are accumulating on the market that are sitting there and not selling are really increasing the amount of inventory that we have on the market. Pending sales has gone down in Kent and Auburn, flat in Renton from 1 year ago. Federal Way up almost 30% for the number of pending sales. And median days on market. So this is how long a home sits on the market before the seller accepts an offer and the home goes pending. We have seen longer times in recent history, but as far as middle of the summer, July, twice as long on the market for Kent. Last year it was 7, now it's 14. Renton is 12 days, Auburn 19, and Federal Way 17 days. Median sales price, again, a little bit of variation depending on what city we're looking at. Kent has dropped almost 5% for the median sale price. Renton's up 5%. So it really just depends on where you're looking. Federal Way is actually down 10% for the median sales price compared to 1 year ago. And last time we met, which was July, we didn't have a show, but late June we did. And for the weekly average rate, it was 6.81%. For the daily rate, it was 6.86. Now we have had the rate fall to 6.63, and it's the third week in a row that this weekly average has come down. This is kind of a Monday, Tuesday to Monday, Tuesday comparison because each week that's when they survey the people that are issuing these mortgages. So it fluctuates less than our daily rate. But this is the third week in a row that rates have come down. So this is great news. It's just not a drastic drop. The highest that we were at this year was 7.04, which was set in mid-January. So you can see this hasn't been a ton of fluctuation. Economists generally expect the average rate on a 30-year mortgage to remain above 6% this year. Recent forecasts suggest it'll ease to around 6.4. And for our daily rate, we have 6.57, which we did have a pretty big drop earlier in the week and then remained pretty steady. But keep in mind that this graph is not actually covering that much of a spread. That's 6.6 to 7.05 on these lines. They have taken this pretty flat chart and made it look as dramatic as possible. And if we look at that over time, back to January 2024, we went up and then down into September and then up again. And then we're actually this year between 6.5 and 7, we've been remaining relatively flat as far as fluctuations go. Mortgage rates have moved within a narrow range for the past few months. Rate stability, improving inventory, and slower house price growth are an encouraging combination. And that's Sam Cater, the chief economist of Freddie Mac. And from Housing Wire, analysts, economists, and mortgage professionals are coining this quarter's activity as one of the most calm periods for mortgage rates in recent memory. So they're just saying there's not been a lot of volatility, as you can see here. We've kind of come into this narrower area and things are remaining a little more consistent as far as rates. And Sam Cater again, borrowers should find comfort in the stability of mortgage rates, which have only fluctuated within a narrow 15 basis point range since mid-April. Although recent data shows that home sales remain low, the resulting available inventory provides home buyers with a wider range of options to consider when entering the housing market. So as far as mortgage rate projections, it varies a little bit, but between 6 and 6.6% ending the year is kind of where we're at. So they'll drift down slightly, most likely, but it's not a ton. I expect a generally downward trend for rates this year, but at a slow enough pace that it might not be noticeable in any given month. And that's Danielle Hale of Realtor.com. And then Lawrence Yoon, chief economist at NAR, said, even incremental small changes in mortgage rates, I think will bring more buyers. So there's a little bit of a disparity on how buyers will react to rates coming down slightly, but very few people out there think that the rates are going to drop dramatically. But even a small change in rates can help reduce payments. So these, for a home loan amount of 400,000, the monthly mortgage payment at 7% would be $2,661. If that drops to 6.5, that's going to be $2,528 per month, saving you 133 approximate dollars per month. So it does make a difference. It does add up, but it's not going to be a super drastic change, but there is a difference between those. So just one last reminder, summer home buyer seller guides are available, as well as that first time home buyer guide. And stay tuned for future classes. Working on getting some planned in September and October. So check back next month. The next month's update will have classes available for you to sign up for if you would like to. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. My phone number and email address are on the screen there. I would love to have a conversation with you about the market in your area or an area you're interested in potentially moving to. Answer any questions that may have popped up throughout the show, or if you read something in the news that's confusing and you want to talk it out and get a better idea of what that means, please let me know. I am here to support you however I can. So once again, thank you so much for joining me for your South King County real estate update. I'll be back here next month in September with your local news and relate that nationally and let you know what's going on. So have a fantastic rest of the month, and I'll see you next time.